Yeah, you're the host.
Well, Josh, buddy, Saturday was probably the toughest Saturday of the season for Oregon State fans. And there's no sugarcoating it today. Trent Bray in his press conference was like, yep, that was the worst game of the year in all three phases. Not really anything you can take away from that. You get shut out at a bad Air Force team, and just nothing went right. You tried to do the whole two quarterback system. Benko Branson didn't make the trip. Melvin Jordan didn't play. Your starting defensive tackle was out for the game on the second play of the game. Everything went wrong. Josh, buddy, is this rock bottom?
If it's not rock bottom, I don't know what you call it. Trash bottom, garbage bottom. I don't know. You tell me. We have flatlined to the point of I don't know if Oregon State's relevant anymore in any capacity. But thankfully, we have a special guest with us today that I think could help us climb the ranks back into being relevant.
Let's turn the tide a little bit, okay? It's Pac-2 championship week, as well as, hey, we're 4-6, whatever the case is. It's still Pac-2 championship week. We're bringing back friend of the program, if we can call him a buddy, Coach Dickert. We're bringing back former offensive lineman of the Washington State Cougars and catch every day, Mr. John Scukanec. John, buddy, thank you so much for coming back on. How are we doing on this fine Monday evening?
I'm doing great, fellas. Thank you for having me back on. I'm always ready to tangle with the Beavers, always ready to talk about the Cougs and the Pac-2 championship. It didn't go our way either on Saturday, so we're both coming into this licking some wounds a little bit, and we'll talk about it here with you guys today. So I appreciate you guys having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it's obviously been a weird year. A lot of different, just schedule wise, a lot of differences between last year and this year, and obviously next year is going to be even weirder, playing each other twice. But what has the experience been as a Coug this year, playing against mostly a Mountain West Conference and having a lot of success?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So part of part of what I've done, I'm just speaking for me right now, and it's just survival kind of. I do it with the Mariners. I'm a Mariner fan, and you can't get caught up in all the stuff going around them because it's depressing. And I've sort of done that with the Cougs this year. Like I hate what happened to the conference, and I don't want them to play, Utah State and stuff. I'd rather have them play USC and Oregon and Cal in those traditional rivalries, but that's not coming back, and it's gone. So I've tried to just remove myself from the weirdness and just be like, the Cougs play on Saturday. I'm going to watch them play whoever they play, and we'll try to enjoy it. And luckily for me and for most of the Cougs this year, more often than not, it's gone our way. So we're 8-2. They've had a good team. They've had a fun team. Mateer's been fun. So I've enjoyed the season despite all the weirdness. And I think just for my own mental health, I have to take out the fact that we're not playing in the Pac-12 anymore. We're playing a weird, modified Mountain West-esque schedule. So to be honest, this week feels a little better to me because it's some normalcy. It's Oregon State. I played against Oregon State. So it's fun to have that rivalry back as the Pac-2 championship.
Yeah, and you talk about being excited for games. Us over here at Oregon State have struggled to find that excitement for the last 5 to 6 weeks. There's been a dark side to this since everything that happened last year. And I think this last Saturday, we kind of hit rock bottom. Rob and I have talked about that here in the beginning. We're going to say it. Oregon State hit rock bottom.
Sure.
Now the Cougs, they go down to New Mexico and they lose a game that felt kind of like they Couged it. I mean, it just kind of felt that way. What happened on Saturday? Did the team kind of did it finally catch up with them?
Well, it's funny, and I appreciate the situation that you guys are in, right? Because I'd be there too. I think we both, as a fan base, Cougs and Beavs this year, thought, hey, we should be the flag bearers in this quote conference this year, and we should win some of these games. And luckily for the Cougs, they've won more than they've lost, and I can feel pretty good about that. You guys are on the other side of it, so I don't blame you for being upset. If the Cougs were in that spot, I'd be upset and rock bottom too. You talk about last week with New Mexico. We were talking before we came on here. The Cougs have been flirting with this for a couple of weeks during the season. I don't think the Cougs are as good as their record would lead you to believe. They're ranked and that's fun. But people were talking about the college football playoff. First of all, they were never going to get into the college football playoff. That would have never happened. The powers that be would have never let that happen. But if you watch the Cougs this year, they've flirted with this type of game a couple of different times. And San Jose State, they should have lost. San Diego State, they should have lost. And they've been able to play hard and make one play and come out ahead. And they just weren't able to do that against New Mexico. So I don't think it's a case of they overlooked them or this is who they are. And more often than not, they've been able to make the play and they just weren't able to make it on Saturday. That kid for New Mexico, their quarterback, is a better runner than Mateer, and we couldn't stop him and we just ran out of time. So upsetting loss, yes. But to be honest with you, I'm not completely shocked because they've flirted with this a couple of times so far this year.
And when you mentioned John Mateer earlier, and you just mentioned Mexico quarterback being a little bit better of a runner, but Mateer's had an incredible season. Yes. As an offense, Washington State is 13th in the country. They average about 472 yards a game. They average, I think, 39 points a game. They're like ninth in the country in offense. So they've had a good year scoring the football. John Mateer has had a lot of rumblings recently about the NIL stuff, and it's really the hard conversation to have currently with these two schools. And they asked Trent Bray about it last week. How much money do you think it's going to take? And he said it's definitely in the millions. What is it going to take to keep a guy like John Mateer around? Because he's got a couple of years left of eligibility. Is he going to be a Coug forever?
Yeah, I mean, if you just do the math, you'd probably have to say no, right, guys? Paul Sorensen, former Coug, was in the news last week. He came out and said that Mateer has $1 million offer on the table right now from somebody. I don't know who that is, or if that's even true. But I mean, look, and you guys are in the same boat we're in. This is now a environment where you have money or you don't, and we don't have any. You guys don't have any. Certainly not as much as some of the other schools. I will never fault the kid for taking money. You go get what you can get, but I hate what it's done to college football. I hate what it's done to Washington State. I hate what it's doing to Oregon State. If you're John Mateer and somebody comes to you and says, here's $1 million or 1.2 or 1.5, Pullman, you don't have that in Pullman. You got to take that. That's life-changing money. And I hate that. I hate that for Washington State because the next kid we get, if he becomes that kid, is going to get poached again. You saw it happen to a greater extent with your roster last year, a bunch of the Beavers. So you asked me the question to circle back: is John Mateer a Coug forever? I unfortunately would say no. I'm gonna say no. I hope so. I hope that they can come up with enough money that he wants to be in Pullman. I think he likes it there. There is some ties to nobody else gave him a shot. We gave him a shot. He's a Coug. He's, all of that good stuff. But I mean, money talks. He's probably not going to make a ton of money in the NFL. So if he can go get some right now, I wouldn't fault him for doing it. I hope it doesn't happen, but my answer is no. I would be a little surprised if Mateer's a Coug next year.
And as a former player, obviously, this new day and age football is something that you never dealt with. Is there any pipeline? Is there any paperwork for Oregon State and Washington State to stay relevant? Because when Coach Bray comes out and tells us that obviously Oregon State's NIL is in the millions, obviously we know Oregon State doesn't have that money to keep these players around. Is it just something that we're just going to be stuck in and it's just going to be constant turnover? Or is there any way for either school to try to figure something out to be relevant and to stay relevant?
Yeah, that's a good question. You mentioned me back when I played a million years ago. Yeah, there wasn't a landscape. That wasn't part of it. I had somebody buy me Arby's once in Pullman because I played football. Hey, that's a delicious roast beef sandwich, and I got it for free because I was the right tackle at Washington State. But my one hedge for this answer will be that the landscape is constantly changing, right? It's different. You mentioned it's different today than it was a year ago when we talked. It's different than it was 3 years ago. It'll probably be different to some degree in a year from now or 3 years from now. So I'll never say never, but we are what we are. And we don't have the money. We don't have the donor base. It's Pullman, Washington. It's Corvallis, Oregon. We don't have a Phil Knight. So if this is the new landscape and kids are in it for money, and again, I'll never fault the kid for taking it, and we don't have it, then yeah, unfortunately, in my opinion, that's what we're going to see. We're going to become a feeder school for these one-off. I mean, you saw it with Cam Ward last year, right? I mean, it's going to become a program where we have to go find the kid that isn't the diamond yet. We're going to have to get him and develop him, hope he turns into that, and almost play it year to year. Try to have a special season and then do it again, because Dickert says all the times that people are circling right now. They're circling the players at WSU, and they're going to poach off the best ones. I don't know how you stop it. The Cougar Collective does a great job trying to raise awareness and raise money, but there's only so much you can do. We just can't compete with some of the bigger schools. We can't compete with Oregon's checkbook. We just can't. And unfortunately, I don't see that coming to an end anytime soon for either one of our schools.
Yeah, and who's Cam Ward handing the ball off to at Miami then?
Yeah, right.
That kid from Louisville, Texas. Yeah. Damian Martinez. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
And look at Oregon. Like, Oregon's great this year, right? And I don't like Oregon. I root for them to lose every week. I've made no secret about that. But they're the best team money can buy right now. And if you look at I think I read somewhere that of their starting 22 offense and defense, 17 or 18 of them are from the portal. They're not homegrown kids. They're paying, they paid Bo Nix $3 million last year, got their money's worth. They're paying Gabriel a couple of $1 million this year. They're going to do it again next year. They're just going to go find whatever the next quarterback is that they can go buy, and good for them. Like, I'm not trying to be the old man yelling at the cloud. It's just that's the way college football is right now. And Oregon State has a kid that comes up and is good. He's going to go get a bunch of money thrown at him that the Beavs can't match. That's going to happen to the Cougs. It's just the landscape that we're in right now. And I hate it. I hate what it is for college football, but I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, guys.
No, and it's unfortunate, because what Oregon State and Washington State have always been, they've always been that school to find that diamond in the rough and then develop them through the 3 and 4 years that they're going to be at Washington State and Oregon State. And then when they get to the NFL, it's like we were the one who developed them. They were homegrown. I look at a guy like Marcus Wheaton at Oregon State. He came in as a low 3-star, couldn't catch the ball. Comes out of Oregon State, and he's a pretty good producer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's so many stories like that. But now, if that were to happen in today's world, you look at like Brandon Cooks too. He came to Oregon State, and it's like he wouldn't stay there all 4 years. There's no shot that a guy that good would stay that long. And we've already seen it at Oregon State last year. Jermon McCoy, stud true freshman corner, was really good, played a lot for a true freshman. And then Tennessee came a calling, and he's had a great year for them. And it's just like, dude, this sucks. Like, I can't even get excited for these talented freshman players, because it's just like they're going to get poached. And it becomes a year-to-year thing. And now we're seeing at Oregon State at the portal side of it too. If you can't offer the kid in the portal a lot of money, it's kind of like you're basically settling for bare bones. And we're starting to see that at Oregon State with the quarterback situation. We've had 3 guys who are just not getting it done, and 2 of them are from the portal. And it's just like, where do you go from here? But to kind of get into the football side of it, we talked a little bit before we started recording. Don't know how much you've been watching the Beavs. It seems like you have a pretty good grip on their season. I know you guys had a tough one last year, a little bit, some similarities a little bit, but not entirely. It's been tough, obviously, for Oregon State. But what are your thoughts so far on Trent Bray in his first year as a head coach at Oregon State?
Yeah, I think I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised that they haven't been better. And I watch most of the Beavers games. We're on the same network now most of the time. So, I'll watch the Cougs and the Beavs on Saturday and see how they do. I haven't watched every game. I am surprised that they haven't been as good. And sometimes they look down. Like, I'm shocked at last week. I mean, you guys are joking about it being rock bottom. I don't know how it can't be rock bottom. That's pretty bad. So I don't know what that is. I've been on teams like that, and usually when you start seeing results like that, it's more than just what's going on the field. That's locker room stuff. I'm not going to say that Bray has done a bad job or he's lost the locker room, whatever, but I think we hinted about it earlier, this new landscape, right? You don't even get the opportunity to develop kids sometimes. You get kids in the portal or kids that are thinking about the portal, starts to go bad, the season starts to go bad, the writing's on the wall. Who's to say that? I mean, we've seen it at other schools, right? We've had that UNLV kid left during the middle of the year and just said, I'm out of here. And you're seeing kids do that. So I wonder if there's something like that going on in Corvallis where kids are behind the scenes saying, look, I'm not going to stick around for this. I'm going to not play anymore or not do this and go into the portal and try to go get mine somewhere else next year. I don't have any idea if that's happening or not. When I see what's going on the field with the Beavers, I think Trent Bray's a good coach. I think he was the right hire. There's got to be something else going on. And unfortunately, that's where my mind goes, that maybe it's a locker room thing. It's a culture thing. He hasn't had a time yet to establish what this identity is at Oregon State. And that's tough anyway. It's almost impossible when you're in this new, I'm in it for me, transfer portal era, because that's really what we're in right now.
Yeah, and Rob and I have been talking over the last couple of weeks. It feels like every week, if we lose this game, what's the end goal for Oregon State? Now we come out this week. Obviously, if you're asking me personally right now, I just want the next 2 weeks to be over with. I hope Washington State murders us, and then I hope Ashon Jenny comes in and rushes for 900 yards and seals up the Heisman against Oregon State. Okay, those are my end goals. But as a Cougar fan right now, with 2 easier games left on the schedule, what are the goals for Cougs and their fan base right now?
Yeah, we hinted about it earlier. I think there's a ceiling for the Cougs going forward, at least for the foreseeable future. You know, they were flirting with one loss and the opportunity to maybe run the table, and they were getting up there in the rankings. But you guys, we all know the college football powers that be would have never put them in the playoff. It would have never happened. And certainly with Boise State in front of them, it would have never happened because Boise State trounced us when we played. So I just trying to be realistic. There was no shot that the Cougs were getting in the playoff. And I don't think there'll be one next year or for the foreseeable future, depending on how the conference realignment thing shakes out. So when you ask me what a realistic goal is, we're kind of living in it, right? They're 8-2. You know, they should beat Oregon State this week. You know, they should beat Wyoming. They should be 10-2 and go to a fun bowl game. And that's probably the ceiling for Washington State. And I'll be honest with you, like I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Like I'm realistic. If I sit back here and the Cougs are 10-2 and we go to the Holiday Bowl or we go to the Alamo Bowl or something like that, we play a fun team, a bigger name team, maybe we win. Like that's an amazing job for what they're dealing with. So I don't have any visions of grandeur bigger than that. I don't think the college football playoff is realistic at all for either of our schools until the conference thing is settled and we start to rebuild that a little bit, however that looks like in the future. So I think that's my goals for this season. Beat Oregon State, beat Wyoming, and go to a bowl game and see what we can do. And then have a good time. And Cougs had a good year, and we'll deal with the transfer portal, and we'll deal with the mess that's going to happen between now and then, and we'll reload in 2025 and try to do it again.
And these next 2 games don't really feel like a tall task right now for the Cougs, especially what they're looking at. Wyoming's had a really tough year. Oregon State's obviously in the skids, but you know, you're an old school guy.
I joke with you guys though. I told you before we came on,
Yes,
don't underestimate the power of Washington State to play crappy, because we saw it Saturday, right? We just saw it. And I've been there, right? I have physically gone into Corvallis and played a team that was not good and lost. 1994, I did it. We were a good team. We were ranked. We ended up going to the Alamo Bowl. We came into Corvallis. They were horrible. They weren't any good, and they kicked the crap out of us. And I lived that. So I've seen it happen. I would not write off Oregon State in this game whatsoever. because the Cougs have shown it this year, the ability to play poorly. And it could certainly happen again down there in Reser. So I get it, doom and gloom, but don't just look. I'm cautiously optimistic that the Cougs win the next two, but I'm not betting my mortgage on it either.
But well, then I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, there always is that factor of the Cougat. There's always a chance of that. And it sucks because Washington State's it's just a history thing for them. It just feels like it's always looming. It's like I know so many Cougar fans. I have family members that are Cougar fans. And every time I text them during a game, it's like, hey, you guys are playing great. They're like, stop, don't say that. It's just like always the same response every time. And it's hilarious. But it sucks too, because it's just kind of part of the football program. It's like, well, things can also turn pretty quickly. And it's crazy how things can change in a year. And you're an old school guy. You still value those good bowl games. 10-win seasons are a great accomplishment. I think that it's definitely lost in today's college football of, hey, Alamo Bowl's a good bowl. Holiday Bowl has always been a good bowl game to go to. If the Cougs can get there at 10-2 and then maybe beat somebody like a good ACC team or whatever the case is, that's a good year to go 11-2. You can't be like, whatever. You only played Utah State. Like, okay, you still got to go out there and beat them. There's still that side of football. It's like it doesn't matter who's in front of you. You still have to go beat them. And if the Cougs go 11-2, that's a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys lived it with us, and you're living it with us now. Our world blew up a year ago. Everything blew up. So you can't look at it through that lens of, well, you're only playing. Like, we were left for dead. And I'll give both schools credit. They pieced together a reasonable schedule and games, and they play, and we're on TV, and I can watch them. And like, they're doing the best they can today with what they were given. So absolutely, if the Cougs go 11-2, I absolutely take that. I mean, look through our history. We don't have a lot of 11-2 seasons. And if you're out there and somebody wants to throw in, oh, you only played or you only did, well, screw you guys. It wasn't our choice. Like, we didn't leave. Like, everybody left us. And so we had to pick up the pieces the best we could. And if that ends up being, 11-2 and an Alamo Bowl, heck, I'll buy the t-shirt. I'm in.
Absolutely. And Coach Digger's done a good job this year with the Cougs, just trying to get in focus on the year and just going from there after a tough year last year, starting 4-0 and finishing 5-7. Now you're staring a double-digit win season in the face. Coach Dickert today, we broke the news to you of what he said during his press conference today of Oregon State's not our buddy. They would have left us just like we would have left them. It's just how it is. That was his quote. And he just says, we just want to go out there and compete with these guys. They're a big rival to us now. What are your thoughts on those comments from Coach Dickert today?
Little surprised. Like, you did break that story. I hadn't heard that yet. So little surprised with that. It felt a little salty for me. I'm going to say that might be some residual New Mexico distaste in your mouth left. If we go down there and beat New Mexico, maybe we don't hear that exact comment. You heard in that quote, I think he kind of pulls it back a little bit. But I think his job is to win this game. And I think the stuff we were alluding to earlier, I think he knows this is a losable game for Washington State. They could absolutely go down and lose this game. And so as a coach and in that locker room, this week, like, all the stuff with, like, it's fun for you and I to say it, right? Hey, we're in this together, Beavs, the whole thing. If I was on that field and I was going down to play, I wouldn't want to be that way either. I'd be like, hey, let's go kick these guys' butt. So he's got a team to motivate. There's been problems. They've looked flat at times this year. They're certainly a team that can come out and play down to an opponent. So I think this is a little bit of coach speak. I think it's a little bit of Dickert saying to the guys, hey, these guys will kick your butt if you let them. And if you think they won't because we're friends, you got another thing coming. So let's get nasty too. And if that's the motivation behind it, then I'm good with that. That's a good message.
You know what? In last year's game too, and Pullman was kind of chippy. Josh Kelly spit in Ryan Cooper's face. Deshaun Fenwick scored our first touchdown to cut the lead in half, and he did the Cougar chomp and cut it. I'm like, okay, these guys are not friends. The players are not friends. The fans are. So
Right.
that comment to me was just like, are you trying to divide the fan base, Coach? What's going on here?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of, like you said, this is our big rival now. This is what's comfortable. This is the other Pac-12 school that's with us. They're a good program. They will kick our butts if we let them. So, slapping on the back and we're in this together and we're all buddies. That's great until Saturday. So let's get our minds right and let's go kick their butts, because they're going to certainly try to do it to us. And again, from that aspect of it, good. Because if I was on that team, I wouldn't want to be shaking hands either. After the game, great. I'll give you a hug, respect. We played, we did it together. Between the lines on Saturday, I want to kick your butt because you're trying to kick mine. So I'm okay with that. In a way, I kind of like it. So if that's my take on it, is I think that's where he's going with it, and good for him. Maybe some of the Coug fans, maybe this loss to New Mexico is good because it gets everybody refocused, and we don't think we're just going to roll people over. We got to come out and actually play hard, or what happened Saturday can happen again for sure.
Yeah, I hope Oregon State comes out with some energy on Saturday, because, man, we're going to go down with like a 7-game losing streak here, and we're just going to be honest with you and our fans here. This is what's going to happen. But I'm going to fast forward to next year because I want to be done with this year already. And let's talk about the schedules real quick. The Beavs and Cougs, they're going to play twice next year. Hopefully, last year of the crazy schedules. What's your feeling on this 2-game slate next year, and then kind of the future of the conference coming up in the next couple years?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't like it when they announced it. I thought it was weird. I think it's a weird look. It feels, with all due respect to JV, it feels a little JV-ish, right? I mean, that's what
We
you would
agree.
do in a Yeah, that's what you would do in a JV high school program. Oh, we got to play Evergreen twice. So I didn't like it. I get it, why it happened. Scheduling is tough. I'll be honest. I'm surprised they put together a reasonable schedule this year on short notice. Schedules, as you guys know, are often done 3, 4, 5 years in advance. There's money involved. There's commitments involved. So I think they just got down to the wire and said, well, shoot, we're just going to have to do it this way. So all that being said, I don't think it'll be that big a deal. Next year, we'll play you guys down there. It'll be a thing. And then it'll be a little weird to turn around a couple weeks later and do it again. And, the idiots that root for the green team and the purple team will probably laugh at us, but screw those guys anyway, because we don't like them anyway. So it's out of necessity, right? I don't like that we play the fake Apple Cup anymore. I'm sure you guys feel the same way about the fake Civil War. It's just the landscape that we're in. We have to play them twice next year. All right, let's do it, I guess. You talk about going forward. Boy, I don't know. If I knew, I would be making a lot of money somewhere, answering questions for people. The state of college football is in flux, and I think anybody that says it's going to be this way in 2026 or 2027 or 2028 is kidding themselves. You just don't know. Another conference can collapse. Teams can move. Teams can come back. Teams can leave. I think, we've added some teams for 2026. They're still looking for another one. If you told me that would be the conference in 2028, I wouldn't bet on it. I think there's too much flux going on. What's the ACC going to do? What are these other schools going to do? You hear rumblings like, oh, does Cal want to come back? Does Stanford want to come back? These schools are already complaining about having to fly across the country to play volleyball against Rutgers. So if I had to go crystal ball, tinfoil hat, what's it look like in 10 years? I think the Pac-12 will exist in some fashion. I think you will be there. I think we'll be there. I think the Boise States and San Diego States will be there. It would not shock me if to some degree we see a Cal or a Stanford, maybe even a Utah come back. And it becomes, if they're going to climb into relevance, they're going to have to build a, quote, another respectable conference with more than they have available right now. And I just don't know what that's going to look like in a couple years. I don't know that anybody knows what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that's a great point, too, about just looking down the line to 2028, 2030, when things really get kind of interesting. Because we know the TV networks have already met about trying to make two big super conferences. And just at that point, then they're like, where does it leave the schools like, look at Purdue right now in football. They're terrible. Does the Big Ten really want to keep them along for this new thing? It's like they're not going to get any better. They're the same kind of school as us, and Washington's like it doesn't really make a difference for them. They're not going to be good at football. They're going to be the basketball school always.
Yeah.
And I think the Pac-12 kind of looked in that lens. They're like, okay, well, let's look at the basketball side. Let's add Gonzaga. Okay, that's fine. There's also a side of it too for Oregon State for this new conference is baseball. It's there's a lot of different moving parts for every other sport, and how is it going to work for everything? And wrestling too is big at Oregon State. So there's a lot of things that still need to be figured out with the future of this conference for sure. But as soon as they find that last football school that will play everything else too, then it's going to be like, okay, now we go. Because once you get that eighth football school, it's kind of like, okay, who else can we get now? So I'm really curious because you mentioned Cal and Stanford. Obviously, they make the most sense because they're on the West Coast. Right. Utah, too, I think they're not very happy. They're going to be bad in basketball forever now in the Big 12. But then you look at like a Memphis. I know we talked to like Tulane and those things. Is that too far east? So there's a lot of things going on with conference. If you want to really be a regional conference, then obviously Cal and Stanford make the most sense.
And you hit on it too. You talked about the super conference. I think that's where it's headed. I think, this is a sport where you have money or you don't. And the schools that do are not going to want to mess around with the schools that don't, TV. So, that unfortunately we're in the have not group. And I don't know that we're ever going to climb into the haves. And we just don't, like I said, we don't have a Phil Knight. So for me, I really, as a Coug and a Coug fan, I know they will play somebody every Saturday. So who that is and what conference and where, I can't really lose sleep over because it's going to be unsatisfying to some degree anyway. I just tell me what time the game's on and I'll watch and hopefully we win. Do I wish it was playing USC? Yeah, I do. But, it's still fun to watch them play whoever they're playing. And that's just the reality that we're going to exist in for a while.
Yeah, we're in the same boat, man. It doesn't really matter what time or place or who we're playing. I'm still going to support no matter what.
Yep.
Like you just said, it does suck. You play in the Apple Cup and the Civil War in September. That's obviously not ideal. And look, for you guys, Washington was not very good this year. And they are still going to go to a bowl game, but that's obviously not their end goal. They don't want to just win 6 games. But for our side of it, it's like, well, our rival is the best team in the country. That's probably the best team they've ever assembled ever. And if they don't win a national championship this year, I don't know when they will. So
best team money can buy, right?
Exactly. And like when they played Ohio State, it's just like, this is an NFL game. Like there's so much money on the field right now. It's insane. Yeah. And that's just, obviously that's not the game we're going to play. So Mike Parker and John Warren, they talk about it all the time on the Joe Beaver Show. It's like, eventually someone's going to be playing college football and someone's not. So we're probably going to be the ones playing college football. And that's totally okay with me. I'm still going to support this team no matter what. And it's crazy how much things can change in a year, man. So last year on this day, I mentioned it before the podcast, Josh and I were tailgating for the UW game. I was hanging out with my dad on top of our buddy's RV. That's my profile picture on Twitter. We're hanging out, having a good time, getting ready for the biggest matchup of the year. And from that day on, everything has just been really bad for Oregon State. And nothing has gone right football-wise. And it's crazy because we had about 300 people listening to those 3 weeks of podcasts, essentially, and you were the last one of that when Trent Bray got hired. And last week, we got ready for Air Force with about 100 people listening. So we've lost a lot of followers here from this football season, and that's what losing does.
Yeah, for sure.
But we got 2 more games to go. Okay, this Pac-2 championship thing is going to be fun for that case, but obviously the Cougs have a pretty big advantage here. They have a much better team. They have an elite quarterback who's hopefully, fingers crossed, they can find some money for him to stay in Pullman. But how do you see this game? I know you feel like they're going to win on Saturday. How do you feel this game is going to go? Give us a score prediction if you can.
Again, I know you think I'm just being tongue in cheek, but I'm not, right? I've lived this game. I honestly have lived it. So I'm a little nervous, but if I put that away and the Cougs come down and they play focused and they play good defense and the Oregon State doesn't play well, you know, in theory, right, we should be able to put some points on the board. We have all year. We should be able to slow Oregon State down. We're familiar with you guys. We've had a good run of success. I think we've won 9 of the last 10. There's no reason that shouldn't continue. So everything goes our way. I think Mateer has a good game. The defense plays well. We can throw and catch a little bit. We can run the ball a little bit with Parker in the backfield. I'm going to say, if I had gun to my head, had to make a call, I'm going to say something in the 42-21, 42-24 range.
Yeah.
What scares me is, and we've seen it a couple times. We saw it again in New Mexico. I think the Cougs come out, they start well, they play well. We get up, 28-7 at half, and then we let our foot off the gas. And my question for you guys is this: is if that happens, let's say it's 28-10 at halftime and everything's going the Cougs' way, the Cougs have a tendency to let our foot off the gas and let teams come back in it. Do you guys think that Oregon State has whatever it takes in that locker room at halftime to come out and take that opportunity?
Josh, go first.
Absolutely not. Now, here's my question to you, John. Can the Cougs stop the run, pass, punt? Can they stop that? That's the key to success Saturday. No, we're seeing it, and we've seen it for the last few weeks now. Oregon State has struggled offensively to an insane, incredible level of struggling. There is not a quarterback on this roster right now that we feel like can go out there and win a football game for them. We have quarterbacks that like to run first instead of looking for options to pass. And we have a quarterback in Dr. Bengal Branson that can't run, that will sit in the pocket, but can't complete a pass to an Oregon State wide receiver to save his life. So the answer to your question is no. And this is taking a little side turn here. And that's just how I feel. Rob has been a little bit more level-headed than me the last few weeks. I've been really down in the dumps, so I'll kick it over to Rob for hopefully something a little bit more inspiring.
Sure. I think for your scenario, if it's 28-10 at half, okay, that means we're down by a lot. We probably don't have enough time to run the ball. That is, the Cougs have the game in hand. They can pretty much cruise the rest of the way and probably get away with the same kind of attack that they had against New Mexico in the second half, just scoring 1 touchdown.
Sure.
Because we look at Oregon State the last couple of weeks. Obviously, Air Force, they don't get the ball over the end zone at all. They don't even get in the field goal range really at all. They use their punter as their jersey reveal, and that was a good hint of how the game was going to go. They punted way too many times, and we saw red zone struggles against San Jose State. That was Bengal Branson's game. Bengal doesn't make the trip to Colorado, so then it's like, okay, now we got to go with the kid who doesn't play at all and the kid who's thrown 6 interceptions and 3 touchdowns. So there's a lot of just too much shuffling around, and it's late November, and it's like, what's our plan here on offense? So if they can somehow throw the ball, I mean, maybe they'll score 21, like you mentioned. I have the same kind of idea as you as score wise, but if Oregon State can get out early and control clock and run ball, they'll be okay. And Wazoo's been kind of iffy against the run, so that's where that's my one sliver of hope in this game is if Oregon State can come out and be physical like they were in the beginning of the season, they have a shot to stay in the game. I don't think they win it, but I think they have a shot to be competitive. And if they are competitive the next 2 weeks, take it going to the offseason, just be like, hey, look what we did. We did improve after that Air Force debacle, and we can go from there. But in your scenario, man, I don't see it happening. I don't think this team is equipped to come back like that.
Sure. And you made a joke. You guys made a joke about the run, pass, punt combo. New Mexico State didn't even do that. They just ran. They ran the same play the whole second half, and we didn't adjust to it. We didn't do anything different. And now the kid running the ball, the quarterback's pretty good. And I know you guys don't have that kid, but New Mexico State ran the same 2 plays the whole half, and we didn't stop it. We couldn't stop it. For some reason, Dickert didn't call any timeouts. He wanted to take them home with them, I guess. So again, I think it's going to unfold that way, but that's why you play the game, right? You never know, and we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Appreciate you so much for coming back on, John. And after this game, we will still be buddies. I promise you that, even if Coach Tigger doesn't think so. But,
yeah, that's the good part about I don't play anymore, right? I'm good. You guys are my buddies. We'll be good. Well, we'll wave the Pac-2 flag together the whole time. I hope it works out our way, but no hard feelings amongst the three of us for sure.
Absolutely not, man. Always a pleasure to have you on, John, and we appreciate you so much. You guys can follow him at John Scukanec on Twitter. Get him at catch every day. Get him a glove, and let's throw some balls around, man. Thank you so much again. Go Cougs, go Beavs, and we'll catch you probably twice next season. How about that?
Let's do it. Let's do it. No, and I'm still waiting for you guys to get up here so we can have a catch one of these days.
Hey, I'm coming. Hey, I'm not coming this year, but next year I plan to do both games because I'm missing this year's.
I will do one of them for sure. We'll meet up and we'll have a catch. We'll do it.
Deal. Sounds good, man.
Deal. All right.
Thank you so much, brother.
Yep. Thanks, John.
Well, that was John Scukanec, and it is always a pleasure to talk to the former Coug. Man, what a great human being. Just a good guy to talk to. He was a great football player at Wazoo. We mentioned this the last time he was on last season. His Washington State team was the only team to hold a lead on a national championship Nebraska squad, and he was on that team. So
cool.
Something he can hold a candle to, but they did lose that game. But they had a lead at one point, and that was the only time Nebraska trailed all year, and that was to John Scukanec's Washington State Cougars. So, man, after talking to him, obviously everything went wrong against Air Force. Nothing really positive to talk about. Maybe besides they forced a turnover, they got a sack, and Josh Green punted the ball pretty well. Other than that,
who was the best player on Saturday?
Yeah, MVP was the punter. That's not good. When you run the ball for 69 yards against a 2-7 military academy, it's not going to win many games. And I appreciate Trent Bray's honesty, man. He was actually probably the most open he's been all year at his presser today. Just saying, hey, basically we suck. We got to change a lot of things. And when you lose 5 games in a row like that, yeah, absolutely, you need to change some things. And I don't know. I know people on Twitter are talking about like, hey, there's Tom Herman got fired at FAU. I made the joke today, like offensive coordinator, the Squidward meme. Tom Herman has been a pretty good football coach recently. No, he's not. I'm kind of joking around with that one. But there's a lot of names out there that Oregon State should probably definitely look at to upgrade in some spots. I don't think Ryan Gunderson is the guy for the job. Trent Bray's probably not going to move on from him after year one because they maybe want to wait to see what quarterback they can get and see if they can actually develop a real solid quarterback for this offense because – man, the way they operated against Air Force, it's clear that they do not want to just stick with Giovanni McCoy anymore. And I think that's a little unfair to the kid. But at the same time, when he comes in, he's not doing anything. He didn't do anything against Air Force. And then Jabari comes in and you're like, I see why they don't play this kid. Jeez.
I think we talked about it, right? At some point, you have to flip that mirror around and you have to look at it if you're Bray. And I think this last weekend, at least for me, and I publicly haven't said this yet, I think we saw maybe the first time of McCoy where to me, he actually looked scared to pass the ball a little bit. He just had that feel that he just didn't have that confidence. Now, is that just because, hey, I've lost my starting job, like I've lost my confidence, I don't have it anymore? Not that he had a ton of confidence coming into the last couple of weeks. Or is that coaches don't trust me? I mean, what is building into that? But you go back, Bray, he has to find something. We talk about Gunderson, we talk about all the coaches being on the hot seat a little bit. Probably not going to make that change. Yes, I think that's what 97% of Beaver fans, if you look in all these Oregon State Facebook groups where I'm about to leave every single one of these groups. I
deleted Facebook, man. I can't do it anymore.
I can't open my Facebook in the mornings at 6:45 a.m. when I'm taking a dump on the toilet and see all these stupid people commenting about the Beavers. I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's bad. It's so bad.
But you have to figure out something. And we talked about it with John. Oregon State and the Cougs, they're in trouble. NIL wise, just in general right now, they're in trouble. And Stepping Stone University, stool universe, whatever you want to call it. That's what the Oregon State's going to be. You're going to come in, you're going to get guys that leave after a year, leave after 2 years. I mean, look at that happened last year. And I tweeted out, I'd love to have somebody, like Anthony Gold. Obviously, he's in the NFL doing his thing right now. I'd love to have Silas Bolden. Obviously, he's at Texas, doesn't get a ton of playing time, but dude, playmakers. We need a guy with Silas's energy every Saturday, man. Silas had that it factor about him, an absolute dog, and you don't see that on the sidelines right now.
No, you don't. And somebody, I think it's like, I'm not going to say his name. Never mind. On Twitter was like, hey, Trent Walker is a dog. Don't forget that. And I'm like, no, he's not. Okay,
He's
like
a force-fed dog because we don't have any other options. He
yeah.
is one of our more reliable wide receivers, but when we need him to be reliable most, he's showing that he can't.
And we're not here to shit on players, dude. Like these guys
No,
they work their ass off every single week. I know these guys. I think the Air Force game was the first game where I was kind of like, the effort really isn't there. But every other game, the effort has been there. They've been playing hard. And Trent still had a couple of nice catches against Air Force. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we have Taz Reddix. We have Darius Clements. I've had this conversation so many freaking times. It's like there's a lot better options at receiver that they're not going to. And that's on Coach Henson. Man, he's the passing game coordinator. He's the wide receivers coach. Figure it out, man. Get it to a guy who can make a play in space. And you mentioned Silas Bolden. It's hilarious. My buddy, I have two friends. I mentioned them before. They don't listen to this, but they're Texas grads. They're huge college football fans, huge Texas fans. They're season ticket holders. Texas is playing Arkansas last week. And Gage, my buddy Gage, he knows I'm a diehard Oregon State guy. And as soon as Silas went there, like he was the first one to text me. And he was like, and he texted this week. And he was like, I love Silas Bolden. I love the energy he brings. But like, this guy's going to give me ulcers for his punt return decisions because he always wants to do too much. And I'm like, well, yeah, because you can't tell a lightning bolt to slow down. Okay, if you're going to have Silas Bolden return punch, yeah, he might catch a punt at the 5-yard line and try to return it. That's what he does because he wants to do something with the ball. And Trent Walker's out there catching punts at the 7-yard line, fair catching them. That's the difference. Okay, like that is our difference there. And Silas Bolden didn't even return punts at Oregon State. He returned kicks, and now he's returning punts at Texas, and that's all the playing time he really gets. And that sucks for him, man. And we talked about it with John, all these players leaving. Some of these guys, man, Easton and Akili at USC, like they're on an okay USC team. And you look at Sione Lolahea, FSU sucks. DJU is not even playing. He's hurt. There's so many of those stories. I think the only guys to really actually leave and do well is Atticus Sappington, which sucks, and Damian Martinez. And he's looking maybe at a playoff spot if they can win out. But man, it's just like we miss a lot of that electricity on offense. There's just none of it. And John mentioned that you're up. They're up 28-10 at half. Are you going to be able to come back? It's like no. I think once games get to 2 scores, it's kind of like, dude, this game's over, and that's terrible, man. And it's one thing to be bad, another thing to be boring. Okay, Oregon State right now is boring and bad and dumb. They had so many dumb situations against Air Force. It's just the Jabari Johnson interception. He's thrown to 5 guys, dude. It wasn't even triple coverage. It was more than that. It's like, what throw are you trying to make there, Jabari? And I appreciate you're trying to make a play. I understand that, but let's be smart about it. Okay, where are we throwing the ball there, Bari? And then he ditches plays too quickly. I understand now why the coaching staff didn't want to really roll him out there because he's just kind of a wild card. He's running around like a toddler with no diaper sometimes. You're just kind of like, where are you going, dude? Slow down. You're going to hurt yourself. It's crazy with him. And they played him a lot against Air Force, and the ball did not get moved a lot. So is that going to change against Wazoo if he goes out there? Same thing. It's like, probably not. Experience is good for the kid. He needs to play, obviously, if you want to see what you have. But it's just right now I'm seeing that they got 3 guys that cannot do the job, and they're going to have to figure something out. Either develop the kid you got from Pleasanton, my hometown, or find another kid in the portal. Try something else again. Either if you didn't strike gold, obviously, with McCoy from Idaho in the FCS world, maybe you strike gold somewhere else in the FCS, try to get something else going. But there's a lot of things that need to be fixed with Oregon State, and I think it's just too many things that need to be fixed with 2 games left that it's too much to overcome. It's just way too much to overcome.
Yeah, and I we're gonna finish the year on a 7 game losing streak. It's rock bottom, staying there, and then trying to find the light at the end of the year because going into next year, the beginning of the schedule, I think you said it last week, the Beavs might win 1 game in those first 3 or 4 weeks. Like you're telling me that there's a chance that they could come out losing 10 and 11 games within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That is awful to look at. And I don't know. There's a lot of self-reflecting that has to be done within this program this year. And John said it. I think we can all agree Bray is the right guy for this program. We have to see something. Something has to give. If that's talent wise, if that's coaching staff wise, whatever that is going into next year, you better give some of these Beaver fans something to roll with during the offseason because I'm going to tell you right now, there is going to be a crap ton of empty seats in Research next year.
And that's the unfortunate side of it, man, is losing does not bring people back. Okay. It's a simple world in sports. Winning puts butts in seats, and that doesn't matter how you do it. You just have to do it. And that's what Wazoo's been figuring out. But, at the same time, Wazoo's been winning games, and they haven't really been filling their stadium at the same time. So the strength of schedule definitely does improve next year. You're not just playing a bunch of Mountain West teams who we can't even beat. So there's a lot of different variations for next year. And like you mentioned, that start of the season next year is not easy. Cal's going to be pretty good. They got a 5-star quarterback coming in. How did Cal get a 5-star quarterback? Oh, never mind. My score predictions. Hannah Grace Family, they are a nonprofit organization that provides hope and healing to children and their families and who are facing instabilities. They have programs designed to bring about change like family visitations, free music lessons with gifted instruments, and family support. I love that, man. I play music all the time. You can find out more about this nonprofit and ways you can help children in their program by visiting hannahgrace.org. That is HANNAHGRACE.org. Josh, buddy, I cannot pick this team to win until they prove it to me, and they are not beating Boise State. So I got Washington State 38, Oregon State 21. Yes, they find a way to score 3 touchdowns. Are they going to be competitive touchdowns? I don't know yet. I think Washington State just has too much firepower. John Mateer's going to be a matchup nightmare for us. We're not going to be able to keep up with him. And if Melvin Jordan can't play, if Jacob Schuster can't go, and Andre Jordan didn't play last week, if those guys can't go, man, it's in the sand, dude. Get it out of here. This season's done with if those guys can't go. So 38-21 Cougs. 6 losses in a row is my prediction. You have Cougs in all caps.
Now, listen, hear me out on this. My original thought was 48-9, but I'm going to give Oregon State the benefit of the doubt and say they score at least 1 touchdown. Okay. I'm going to change it.
Did they get 3 field goals? Is that what you're thinking the first time?
Yeah. I'm going to say they score a touchdown. I'm going to give it 48-10. A touchdown and a field goal is what we get. I have nothing to say. I really don't.
Okay, so we scored 13 against San Jose State, 0 against San Jose State, or Air Force. So 6.5 points per game the last 2 games. So 10 would be an improvement.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Show me something where I'm wrong because I can't. I have nothing to say. I don't. What is there to say? And until we come out and we see that we have a capable quarterback that's able to move the ball down the field somewhat to even get us within field goal range. I don't even know what field goal range is right now, but I don't know. I hope John was joking about the Cougs couging it and just Oregon State and Washington State having that game and stuff like that. And I can appreciate that. It doesn't make me feel any better, but I can appreciate their having some sanity somewhere out in the world from somebody. But right now, if you are a legit Oregon State fan, which I like to think that we are, Rob, there might be a lot of people who disagree with that, but because we're just two dudes that live across the country that do podcasts. But if you can honestly say that you believe this team can come out and win this week or next week, show me something. What juice are you drinking? What are you eating? What are you reading? Do you have insight? Like, what is it? Because it's not going to happen. It's not. And I'm sorry. That's all I have to say.
It's a really hard thing to see. Like, are they going to be able to have a lead in the fourth quarter in this game at all? Like, they have to show me something going into next season to really have a glimmer of hope for the next year. But the thing is, like, they've lost a lot of close games this year. Besides 3 games, they've been competitive. Oregon, Cal, Air Force, which is Air Force is obviously the big one that sticks out. It's like, what do you mean you didn't compete against Air Force? But it's it's just kind of the times of Oregon State football right now. They are regressing. They're not getting better. A lot of things aren't getting better. And it's really hard. How are they going to, are you going to compete against number 25 Washington State and then number 12 or 11 Boise State on the road at 9 a.m. on a Black Friday game? It's like there's just too many factors, I think, right now for Oregon State football. And they're going to have to find a way to improve in some area at these last 2 games. They have to show me something and show us something. Give this fan base something in the last home game at least to be like, hey, we're working, we're trying, we're doing everything we can to just, field a competitive squad right now, because 4-1 feels like decades ago. It's crazy to think that this team was 4-1 at one point. And you know what? That Colorado State win is looking pretty good right now. Yeah. They got a pretty good squad. They got some votes for the AP top 25. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's a future Pac-12 school. That's good to see, But from our side of it, it's like, well, Cal didn't really take that Oregon State win and run with it. They went to Wake Forest and barely won, and then they got their doors blown off by Syracuse. So it's like that loss doesn't look good. Air Force, obviously we know about them. They're 3-7, but you got to show us something, boys. If this is rock bottom, you have to go up. There's no other way to go up. If this is not rock bottom, that's bad. And if you have to go even further down, if you lose this game like 48-0, 48-3, then maybe we need to take another look at this coaching staff and be like, man, maybe Trent is a better defensive coordinator. And that's fine if he is. Okay, it's totally fine. But you got to make the right choices, especially if you're Scott Barnes. If this team goes out and really completely poops the bed these last 2 weeks and it shows you nothing, and you finish 4-8, it's not good enough. You can't just sit there and be like, we'll give you one more year like that. And it's like, you're going to lose a fan base. That's how it is, man. And we've already seen it right now. I talked about the numbers of this podcast. I talk about the interactions that I have on Twitter. Okay, they're low. Everything is low. When you lose, things go down. And what'd you say how much tickets were this weekend for Washington State?
I found some for $3 in the end zone. $3.
They're giving them away, folks. Go to the game.
Yeah, you could probably walk right in, to be honest. Yeah.
They're probably like, hey, do you want to come in?
Yeah.
You want to get some flowers for the seniors? Yeah, man. But shout out to the seniors, man. We appreciate them. Yeah, thank you for sticking around. That you did. Josh Gray, Jaden Robinson, Semesi Saluni. Those guys, man, they're true beeves.
Yep.
True beeves. And, man, they got to see the bottom. They got to see a better side of Oregon State football, and now they're back into the rebuild side of it. And it sucks to have your last year be this year. But Josh Gray, for sure, his legacy goes on forever, man. Like him staying, he didn't have to. He did not have to stick around. And really, honestly, there was no reason for him to stick around, because the way this season has gone hasn't gone well. And the offensive line, honestly, has struggled. And it probably hasn't really helped him in his draft stock grade. But you know what? He still stuck around. He's a beeve. He's going to be a beeve forever. He can come back to Corvallis whenever he wants. If I ever see him in Corvallis, I will buy him whatever he wants, except for a car.
Because we also don't have that NIL money either to give out to them.
No, I don't. Sorry, Josh. But thank you for staying, man. And thank you, Jaden, for staying. He didn't have to do that either for his 6th year. He could have gone somewhere else and played corner for someone else, but he didn't. And I appreciate that. So celebrate those boys. I hope they have a good day. I hope Jaden can find a way to get an interception this season. That'd be cool. If the Beavers can force some turnovers, man, and try to flip the field, short fields, if they can play on the other side of the 50 for a few quarters, that'd be nice, because in Air Force, they were moving on. 28-0 Air Force. Moving on, okay? But, hey, basketball Thursday night against the Ducks, okay?
Let's
7
go.
p.m. tip in Gill. Both teams are undefeated. I don't think both teams have been undefeated ever in their matchups, which that's, obviously cool. They're both 4-0, whatever. But, hey, Oregon struggled at home against Portland in an overtime. They barely won that game. Oregon State has looked good against some lesser opponents. Cal State Fullerton came in, gave them a pretty good punch in the first half, but as their season has gone, they've done that to pretty much everybody and then fallen off in the second half. Beavs played great. in the second half. Started making some shots. Finally, they were building some brick buildings in Gill Coliseum in the first half, but they look a lot better. Wrestling got whooped by Oklahoma State in Gill Coliseum. They faced really some great programs. They faced Iowa and Gill, and they faced Oklahoma State and Gill. So that'll only make them better. I'm glad that they're getting these perennial top wrestling programs into Gill. That's pretty cool. Shout out to Iowa and Oklahoma State coming. I know Oklahoma State came to Corvallis either 2 years ago. So shout out to the Stillwater boys for coming out twice. That's pretty cool. But I think the other side of it, the reality of this conference realignment and NIL and everything that's gone wrong with Oregon State sports is we're seeing it in football and we're seeing it really bad in women's basketball. They are struggling. They got whooped by Minnesota. They got a pretty tough conference, pretty tough non-conference slate coming up here. I believe they play Illinois soon, who's also in the top 25. So it's not going to get easier from them, but I still trust Coach Ruick. He's going to get some things right for them. The WCC will be a lot easier for them for sure, but they're going to be growing. It's going to be a growing pain year for the women, but I hope. You know what's crazy? Like the one coach to come out of this like unscathed pretty much is going to be Wayne Tinkle. If you would have told me, hey, the men's basketball team is going to be the best to come out of this whole situation, I would have been like, yeah, right. But here we are, man. Yeah, hey, I'm on Monday. We might try to do something fun. If you are still listening to this, we appreciate you. You're a true Beeve or a Coug. If you're still listening, thank you. I'm going to be driving up to Denton, Texas on Monday. It's a 3.5-hour drive for me to watch the Beavs play basketball against North Texas. We're going to try to do the podcast while I'm at the game. If it doesn't work, you won't hear it. If the connection is bad in the arena, we will not do it. I'll just do like maybe a video and just kind of like a come with me to go watch the Beavs play. But if it works, it works. It might be loud. It could be different. Just something a little fun to switch it up with this podcast because I'm trying to spice it up, man. Trying to have some fun out here because this football season has not been fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully, basketball can keep rolling. Obviously, if you beat Oregon, that's
a good step in the right direction.
We look forward to those dubs. So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, hopefully see some improvement this weekend for the football team. I mean, just something. I don't even care what it is. Just give us something to roll over into next week because you're about to get ran out of the building.
Post Thanksgiving, man.
Turf.
You know what's crazy about Boise State is their orange end zones are like yellow now, and it's ugly. They need to redo them. But yeah, man. You know what's funny about the Air Force game is my cousin came to visit for the weekend, and he's a Texas Tech grad, but he's wearing his Oregon State stuff because he knew we were going to watch the game. And then my girlfriend, who like never watches football with me, she was rocking her Oregon State sweater, and I like looked around. And I was like, now, like, this is the worst game I've probably watched in 5 years of this team, and this is the one you want to watch.
Never again.
Oh, I was like, all right, and I waited to the end of this podcast before we get out of here. That was the first game I turned off early since 2019. I was just like, you know what, guys, we don't have to watch this. Like, I'm sorry, I put it on. It's embarrassing at that point. And I just knew they weren't going to score. And I think it was 21-0 at that point. I was like, we don't have to watch this anymore. It's fine. So, yeah.
I think I kept texting you like, it's still on. I'm like, bro, turn it off. It's not worth it anymore. Yeah. It's not. Go do something with your life. Be productive, unlike this offense.
Yeah, I didn't see the last Air Force touchdown. I turned off Mike Parker too. Like I haven't done that in a very long time. I stick with them. I stuck through the whole Cal game. I stuck to the whole Oregon game. But it gets to a point. You're just kind of like, you know what? I don't need to do this right now. I can come back next week. They'll play another game, and I'm sure I'll be disappointed again. But it is what it is, man. Thank you guys for listening. Josh, any last words?
It's always, man. Go Beavs.
Till I die, man. Go Beavs. It's always go Beavs till I die, and I hope things get turned around. Prove us wrong, boys. Prove us wrong.